Our Editor's Choice Award was created with the sole purpose of showcasing the creme de la creme of bikes and products on the market, no matter what the price point. Only bikes and products that have been awarded our coveted 10 out of 10 rating in the last 12 months receive our ultimate stamp of approval. And in 2019, we tested a whopping 75 bikes, of which only 11 made the cut. For the full rundown of Editor's Choice winners, head over to our website, and there's a link in the description. But for now, we want to concentrate on 2 bikes on the list. They are the Canyon Spectral and the Canyon Torque, and both are 2-time winners of this award, so they must be pretty special. At first glance, they look pretty similar. But if I went to the Canyon website and I wanted a 27.5-inch wheel bike for enduro riding, which one should I pick? That's the question we want to try and answer today. So Al, you were overseeing the tests of both of these bikes.
In fact, and I tested this bike the year before as well, in 2018.
So can you tell us a little bit more about what makes these bikes similar and different at the same time?
Okay, before we get into why they're similar, the biggest difference between the 2 bikes is travel. The Torque has got 175 mil of travel in the rear, and the Spectral's got 150. Now, previous Spectrals had less travel than that. It was a 140 rear, 150 bike. 2019, they hopped up the travel to 160 in the front, 150 on the rear, and downsized the tires from 2.6 to 2.4 to keep the geometry balanced. So they kind of edged it more towards enduro and edged it into this bike's kind of natural territory. Not much changes to this bike. It's a big hitting bike, 175 in the rear, like we said, 180 mil fork. It's designed basically as like a mini downhill bike, really, sort of downhill end of enduro. But the similarities they're uncanny, really, because I mean, when I tested these bikes the year before, I wheeled the wrong bike out to put it in the van because they were both black, they both look the same. They've got the same like G5 cockpit, so they've got the same bar and stem, they've got the same saddle, they've both got 36s. Okay, this one's an Elite with like the high speed and low speed compression damping adjustment. This is more basic damper. But they've even got the same tires. They're Maxxis Mini and DHR2s with like a max grip compound on the front.
Which is softest compound.
It's like super soft. So it's actually, I'd argue it's even maybe, if you're gonna use this as a trail bike, it's probably a little bit sluggish, that tire. It's ideal spec on this bike, but maybe a little bit sluggish on this one. So they're just some of the key highlights that almost make them indistinguishable. Big difference though is price.
Yep.
This bike's almost £1,000 more. And one of the reasons for that is obviously it's got the carbon front end, but it's also, like we mentioned before, it's got the higher spec Fox damping. So it's got more adjustment and more control, basically.
Okay. It's true though that the Spectral also comes with a carbon front end as well. If you have more money to spend, you can.
If you want to go up, I think this bike was £2,349, but they have a whole range of carbon options for sure.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting, like the price is different, the travel is different. They actually both weigh exactly the same weight. So there's no real difference in weight. And the fact that the component spec is really similar, the sizing is really similar, the geometry's remarkably close too because of the modifications they made this year to this bike to make it more capable. Really, what it comes down to in terms of the ride quality is travel and stiffness.
Okay.
Like this is a much more solid package. And like when I reviewed this bike, I've reviewed both versions of this bike, the previous one and this one. And the big thing that I noticed was that, they made it more capable so you kind of ride it harder, but then you felt that it felt like a trail bike. It felt like a trail bike being pushed to the limit. Whereas like to reach the limits on this thing, man, you got to be going some.
Yeah.
I mean, what's really nice about this bike too is that although it sounds like 180 mil travel, 175 sounds like tons of travel, the suspension's quite progressive. So you can actually run the shock like a little, if you want like more, if you're going on more of a pedally ride where you need some pedal clearance, you can just run a little bit less sag. And because the bike ramps up a lot, you're not always kind of like wallowing in the travel. And actually you got to hit it really hard to get full travel out of it. So although it's got 175 mil travel, you're not using it all the time.
And it's perfectly acceptable bike for fire road climbing and stuff. I mean, I did some climbing on it for the video the other day, and it's pedals pretty good actually for a big travel bike.
And in fact, they really improved that this year because previously it didn't have an Eagle drivetrain at this price point. So like having the 50-tooth cog in the rear just means you just sit there and the seat angle is nice and steep. You can push the seat forward on the top of the seat post. Just sit there and twiddle up the climbs and stuff. Yeah. I mean, the thing that makes it harder to get up the climb probably is the max grip front tire. Like, you can hear it.
Yeah, definitely.
You can hear it.
And it's actually a little bit like a downsized Sender, which is their downhill bike, really, isn't it? Rather than a kind of pumped up Spectral.
Yeah, totally. It's it's got that downhill DNA for sure.
Yeah, and that part of that is the rear suspension has a specific.
Yeah, it's got the triple phase suspension, which is basically just a fancy way of saying it's a progressive linkage. Any progressive linkage is kind of sensitive at the start, ramps up in the middle, ramps up more at the end.
It's not like
no, it's not 3 stages as in like maybe like some of those old forks you used to push on that felt like they had 3 stages of travel. It's not like that at all. It's seamless, but they're trying to get certain characteristics for each portion of the travel. And this bike has it too. Yeah.
And on the Spectral, the changes for this year, you said that involved a longer travel fork and a longer stroke shock. Is that right?
Yeah. They pumped it. That's how they increased the travel on the rear and the front. Yeah.
And is that why they put smaller tyres to then bring it back down a little bit?
So it keeps the BB height low and stuff.
They were 2.6 tyres last year, was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And
you can still run 2.6s on it. It'll still take it. If you don't have enough pedal clearance and you want a fatter tire, you can still go back up to 2.6. There's nothing to stop you doing that.
And that's the way the sort of industry seems to be going, in that the larger volume, kind of almost plus size tyres seem to be sort of disappearing a little bit. It tends to be kind of...
Yeah, I mean, 2.5
ending up around
2.5 seems to be the happy medium because there's so much choice.
Yeah,
it's what most downhill bikes use. So you've got all the casings, you've got all the compounds, you've got wet and dry, you've got everything. Whereas when you go to 2.6, you've got quite a good selection, but then you might not get the casing you want for more hardcore riding, so you're getting punctures and stuff.
Yeah.
But,
So this you would still categorise very much as a trail bike.
It's a pumped up trail bike, and it's a really good one. Okay. I like both versions.
Yeah.
I like the one with 2.6 tires I tested the year before. I like this one. I think it's a great bike. It's agile, it's really maneuverable, suspension works really well, and it's just killer value.
Yeah.
It smoked everything else in its class.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas this, you would say, a lot more maybe bike park orientated, or
you definitely got to be more gravity focused rider. Like more miles on this, more vertical on that.
More smiles on
sure.
that.
Well, yeah, totally. As long as you don't wreck yourself.
Yeah.
It's like. It would be a lot of bike for an everyday ride. You really need to decide what you spend the majority of your time doing.
Yeah.
If you spend the majority of your time in the woods, building senders, hitting drops, doing crazy stuff, then this is the bike to get. You can still pedal around. But if that's not really you, don't get sucked into the extra thinking more travel is better, because it'll just make all of your normal riding feel a little bit sedate.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's why I'd go with this bike.
Okay. Both these bikes are the 2019 models, but has anything changed for 2020, do you know?
Fundamentally, no.
Okay.
Like the frames, the platforms, where they're focused stays the same. There's definitely some spec changes. There's a shift towards more Shimano drivetrains, which is you see across the board.
New SLX and XT
SLX,
and stuff.
Stuff like that. This bike also gets it moves away from the G5 kind of downhill focused bar and stem. It gets a lighter weight race face bar and stem, but and they've actually done one thing to this bike, which they put a faster rolling aggressor rear tire on.
Okay.
So they obviously didn't listen to what I wrote in the review because I wanted a faster rolling front tire, but that's definitely gonna speed things up a little bit. But I think they should have kept the rear tire they currently have and put the same on the front.
So you think the rear is going to be overtaking the front then?
It will in certain conditions with the aggressor, for sure. It's a great tire for if you've got a lot of pedaling to do.
It's a hard pack ground.
It's amazing. It's an amazing fast rolling tire, and I really like it for that. But there's definitely, I've been on that tire in steep sections in South Wales, and it feels like a ski. So we'll see how that pans out for the test this year.
Keep you on your toes.
Yeah.
So those are the Canyon Torque and the Canyon Spectral. Those are two of our editor's choice bikes for 2019. Hope that helped you kind of see the two differences between the bikes, and check back for more editor's choice videos. Thanks.